you. And good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. The Art of Brill started a number of years ago. I joined the Art of Brill team about 6 years ago. And a friend of mine, Dr. Andy Cope, he went back to university, to Loughborough University, to study, of all things, happiness. And he got a PhD in happiness and is now known as the Doctor of Happiness. And in essence, what he did was go up and down the country, finding out what made some people happy and others not so happy, not so resilient, perhaps. And he did this massive study, and he found out there were these two distinct groups of people. There were those at the bottom end of the scale, if you like, that we refer to as the mood hoovers. These kinds of people, they're not necessarily bad people at all, but they have a certain way about them. They're the kind of people that when they go into an environment, go into a room, go into an office, go somewhere, they tend to suck all the energy, the joy, the life out of the place. And they're not bad people, but just got this really kind of consistent negative mindset. At the other end of the scale are those that we call the 2%ers. Now, these are those who they're called the 2% because there's only 2% of them, really. But they are these consistently positive, optimistic, resilience. They have an uncanny ability to bounce back, to keep going in spite of setbacks and what have you. Just a really optimistic mindset about life. And what was really interesting is that 2%ers, they have certain qualities and traits that define them. They make better decisions. They get sick less. They tend to flourish. They have more energy. They learn faster, more creative. They inspire others, more optimistic about life, more motivated, make for flourishing organizations, and they tend to work better with other people. And so there's a whole spectrum in between, from the mood hoover to 2%er. And in fact, he found the happiest person. Guess where he found the happiest person? Have a guess where he found the happiest person in the UK? Anyone? Hazard a guess? No one? Okay, it was from Birmingham, where I'm from. Oh, someone said, let me see the chat here, get the chat open. Oh, work. No, he found the, I'm not sure what David's saying there, but he found the happiest person in Brum, where I'm from. Um, just so you know, the happy people are in Birmingham. And so the study and this workshop is a taster workshop of what we deliver to corporates, to private sector, public sector organizations, over a half day, over a full day, sometimes. This is a 45-minute real taste if you get a feel of some of the ways in which we can be that 2%er version of ourselves. There are 6 habits of a 2%er that we identify. And today I'm going to cover 3 of these habits for you and give you some really practical, hopefully practical insights as to how we can maintain our 2%er self and be the best version and bring the best version of ourselves to our homes, to our workplaces, to our businesses, and so we can make a positive impact. I'm a coach, I'm an author, I'm a speaker. I deliver lots of leadership coaching. I love working with CEOs and executives and high-performing teams with big responsibility on their shoulders, helping them to get clarity and get the best out of themselves and their teams. Written a few books as well. The 4 books I have out at the moment. There's Fit for Purpose Leadership. I wrote with some friends, did really well. There's Teenpreneur. I am passionate about business and entrepreneurship and helping young people in particular to start their own businesses and make money legally. There's The Postcode to the Globe, my first book, which is about my life story, my life journey, and overcoming limitations. And then most recently, the 5 core abilities of highly effective leaders. That's a bit about myself. I was in the Birmingham Post Power 250 not too long ago. They call these the most influential people in the Midlands, apparently. So I got into that list somehow. Don't ask me how, but thank God for that. But the reason I'm so passionate about this particular message of the art of being brilliant is that, I've had my own challenges, you could say. I grew up in inner city Birmingham. Life hasn't always been easy. I went to a school called St. Mary's Primary School in Handsworth in Birmingham, and I actually passed my 11 plus. I was the only boy in my school that year to pass their 11 plus. But what that meant was that I'd have to move from the inner city comfort zone that I was in and go to a school in the suburbs called Bishop Beasley's Grammar School, which I didn't want to go to. My friends were all going to other inner city comprehensives, and I argued with my dad for a while, and I lost the argument, and we actually moved house to be closer to my new school. And he bought me these really short trousers and these really pointy shoes so I could fit in, he says, into this new school environment. Wasn't cool, was not cool, not fun memories at all. But my parents actually divorced literally just after I started in that school. They divorced, and I handled it really badly. And my reaction was to rebel. Really, I decided to myself, I don't care anymore. You know, what I don't. I hated life. I just hated life, and I started hanging around with the wrong crowd. By age 16, it came to a head. My mom said to me one day, now, and she says to me, "Son, I'm sorry, son, but I can't do this anymore. You have to move out now, please. Find your own way. Do your own thing." And she kicked me out of the house. I was homeless, 16 years old, and I lived in a hostel for a while. And you might think that's terrible. You know, how could your mum do that at 16 years old? Well, sadly, I was that bad. I was a law unto myself by that point, and we're close now. We talk now. We get on really well now, in fact. But you know, I lived in a hostel for a while. I lived with family. I lived with friends. I moved around about 12 times, I think it was, between the ages of 16 and 19, from all over, just moving. No stability, no focus. And I mean, if you'd have seen me at that age, you'd have thought to yourself, this kid is not going to make it at all. It's not possible. It's amazing that I go back to my old school now, you know, and I'm, in fact, this week I'm doing a presentation for my old school, and they've had me back in there so many times, you know, it's unbelievable, you know. So when you smoking this and doing that, Errol, and my life has transformed so much, you know. But it was age 19 that it turned around. Really, I had what you might call a date with destiny, where I found myself standing in front of a judge in Birmingham Magistrates Court, and I was being sentenced. And the judge said to me, you know, Mr. Lawson, I've read your pre-sentence report. I've heard your backstory, but you are going to do 100 hours of community service. At which I breathed a sigh of relief, right? And so what it meant was that I'd have to do basically 100 hours of unpaid labor, and I was sent to a place in Handsworth in Birmingham, a building called Law, Leisure and Learning, which was owned by an old Irishman called John Holcroft. And long story short, this gentleman called John took me under his wing. He saw past all of my flaws, my character issues, my language, behavior, my smoking. Said, Errol, you're different, kid. You can make it. You can be someone. Come on, you can do it. I believe in you, he'd say. I say, why do you believe in me, John? No one else does. Come on, Errol, you can do it. And he became a father figure to me in a strange turn of events. And with his help, I started my first company at 19 years old, and my life began to turn around. And, you know, it's just been an amazing journey ever since. Happily married now, 2 beautiful children, you know, business that I'm running. I lead a church in Birmingham, and my life is just completely transformed, you know. And so when I think of this whole message of the art of being brilliant, I just think to myself, you know, I'm reminded that your past, my past, your past does not determine our future, that we have a say in the matter. If we apply ourselves, if we perhaps if we do some of the things I'm going to suggest to you this morning, that there's nothing too hard for us to overcome. We can become whatever it is that we believe we are created to be. We can do that. We can do it. I really believe that, regardless of our past. And hopefully my life is a bit of a testimony to that fact. Sometimes we've got to get a different perspective on things to get a different outcome. We've got to get a different mindset, different perspective for something fresh and new to emerge. And I'm going to share you the next few minutes some things you may have heard before, but I want to ask you to try and think about it a bit differently, get a different perspective on it, and hopefully something fresh will surface for us. Now, there are 4 things that want to stop us from being the best versions of ourselves. We call these the 4 horsemen of negativity. You may have heard of them. Number 1 is monotony, doing the same thing, same places, same faces. The second is tiredness. I've got 2 kids, 2 and a 3-year-old. We had 2 under 2 for about literally 2-3 years, and it's like If you've been there, you know there's no sleep and there's no night where you get a good night's sleep, right? But tiredness can bring you to a state of feeling like, you know what? Like, what's the point? Like, shut the door, keep everyone out. Complexity, having lots of different balls to juggle, different needs to meet, different challenges at home, at work, in the community, and sometimes having lots of these different expectations on our shoulders can make us want to again shut ourselves away from the world. And then the news, or the noise, I call it. 2 minutes of the news sometimes can make you feel like where is this world going? Like, who's even leading our country right now? Like, where are we going? And that can sometimes bring us into a state of negativity. They put a bonus in there as well, COVID. Let's say no more about that and vaccines and everything else, shall we? Let's move on from there. Okay, so well, what determines our experience, our response is really about how our brains are wired and our mindset. You see, here's some examples of people I can think of right now that I'm sure you can think of too. Men and women who have done amazing things in spite of the environment they find themselves in. I always think of Thomas Edison, the uh, the gentleman who they say invented the light bulb. I know it's debated in some quarters, but he failed 10,000 times, didn't he, with the experiment? And they said, Mr. Edison, clearly it's not working. Give up, why don't you? And he said, listen, I haven't failed 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways how not to do it next time. It's largely about mindset. And so, what's your thoughts? They become your words. What's your words? They become your actions. What's your actions? They become your habits. What's your habits? They become character. What's your character? It becomes your destiny. Now, I'm going to put the mic in your hand for a moment now and actually think about what brilliance means to you. Okay, so we all do different things here in the room today, different types of work. And my first question to us today, and it's good to get maybe three or four of you to answer, is what brings you joy at work? In the work that you do, what brings you joy? What do you really love about what you do? Just think of one thing, and maybe you can type it in the chat there, or you can, if you want to unmute yourself and share, feel free. What brings you joy at work? Question number two is, I think there's some things in the chat as well there. Number two is, what three words describe you at your best? If you could be a superhero at work, who would you be? Just for fun. If you could think of any character or create your own character, think of Marvel, think of, DC Comics. Who would you be and why? Awesome. Well, I asked myself the same question, and I thought about it, and I said to myself, in my generation, it was Sonic or Mario, Sega or Nintendo. I love Sonic. Don't hate me, but I love Sonic, man. And I got to meet Sonic in town the other day. It was the best day of my life. Me and my superhero friend. We had so much fun. As you can see, that smile is a big one. So, thinking about brilliance, right? I mentioned earlier a gentleman called John Holcroft who helped me to turn my life around at age 19 years old. Here's a picture of John here, actually. I went back to find him after many years. He sadly passed away now. God bless him. But, I went back to find him, got a picture of him and stuff. And John said to me when I first met him, he said, Errol, if you're going to be the best version of yourself, Errol, he said, you've got to surround yourself with the right people. I said, well, what do you mean, John? He said, there are four kinds of people in life you're going to come across. I said, who are they? He said, the first kind of person, Errol, is a person called the adder. Can everyone say adder for me?
Adder.
Adder. Nice one. He said, adders are the kind of people that when you spend time with them, they add value to you. They encourage you. They inspire you. They're optimistic about life. They're just good to be around. They're good friends, good people. Find friends that add value to you, he said. I said, okay, that makes sense. I can try and do that. He said, the second kind of friend is a person called the taker. He said, takers are always negative. Takers are the kinds of friends and people that they are inherently negative. They're the kind of person that you can be having the best day of your life, feeling great, and they'll say something like, it's going to rain later, or the traffic is terrible. They'll find some way of bringing your energy or your mood down. They're not bad people, but they have this consistent inherent negative mindset about them. They can't help it. That's the way they're wired. And we all know people like that, don't we? And I said, I understand, I get it, John. He then said the third kind of friend or person is a person called the divider. A divider is someone, he says, who, these are the worst kind. A divider, or we call them mood hoovers at the Art of Being Brilliant. A divider is someone who has a way about them that they do certain things that make you feel like, why would someone do that? They have a toxic way. They come into a room and everyone else goes, oh no, they're here again. They have a way about them, but they like to bully people, manipulate people, control people. They always want to be in control. They're not bad people most of the time, but they have this way about an energy that they bring. And I said, John, I get it. I completely understand it, because at that age, most of my friends were like that. We were birds of a feather that swarmed together. And I said, I get it. But then he said this. He said the fourth kind of friend is a friend that we call the multiplier. A multiplier, he says, is someone that when you spend time with them, they have a way of, you feel like you're 10 foot tall. Your chin comes up, your shoulders go back, your chest comes out. When you're with them, you walk with a bounce in your step. You feel like you've been intellectually stimulated. You feel like you're on top of the world. Your multiplier friends, he said, are the ones that you feel like you're invincible. They push you into your greatness. They celebrate you. They encourage you. They want the best for you. If I speak to my multiplier friends, my 2% of friends, and I say, for example, I'm going to write a new book, and they'll say to me, Errol, what do you mean one book? Like, get the first one done, get it out of the way, get on to the next one. They'll say to me. That's the kind of person they are. They push you into your greatness. And I said, John, do they even exist, those kinds of people back then? I didn't know they did. But now I know they do, because in every area of my life, I've surrounded myself with men and women who multiply me, who inspire me, who encourage me, who want the best for me. They challenge me too, but they have a way, like I just can't. I look forward to the conversations. I look forward to being around them, because we know that iron sharpens iron, and we've got things to do. We've got a world to change. We've got people's lives to transform. We haven't got time for negativity. We haven't got time for bitterness and being down. And we've got to lift each other up. And I'm just so grateful for my multiplier friends. You see, my point is, we have to analyze our friendship circles, guys. We've got to ask ourselves, are those that we're surrounding ourselves with most of the time, are they adding to us, taking from us, dividing us, or are they multiplying us? What kind of energy, influence are they having on our lives? We've got to ask ourselves. And then what kind of person or friend are we? Are we an adder? Are we a taker? Are we a divider? Are we a multiplier? Do we go into a meeting room, a conversation, and do we lift the conversation higher? Do we inspire? Or do we diminish and discourage and disempower? What energy do we bring to the table? Even from prison, my dad will phone me and he'd say to me, son, if you mingle with dogs, son, you'll catch.
Fleas.
Absolutely, Sabrina, spot on. Fleas. Or he'd say, show me your friends and I'll show you who you
are.
Who you are. And of course, I'd argue, right? But isn't it so true, guys? Isn't it so true? We know that to be true. He says that the law of association says that the 5 friends that we spend the most time with, we end up being like. That's all of us, man. Young or old. Guys, when I understood this, I had to make some shifts in my circle. And I want to encourage us to begin to think about our friendship circles and the conversations that we allow around us in our environment. And we've got to be that multiplier. We've got to be that 2%er. I want you to think for a moment about the 2% version of you. When you're in your 2% zone, when you are in your multiplier zone, question number 1 for you guys today is, what does it look, sound, and feel like? When you're your 2% self, your multiplier self, personally for you, what does it look, sound, and feel like? Somebody tell me. And then my next question is, how often are you a 2%er? Now for this one, I'm going to do this on a scale. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is I am never a 2%er. I'm never in that zone. Never a multiplier. 10 is I am there 24/7. I live in that place. Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, have a think about it and give yourself a number. 1 is I'm never there. 10 is I'm there 24/7. What's your number? Um, we we believe that it's the sweet spot is around a 7 or an 8, right? And we can maintain a 7 or 8. And if you're a 9 or a 10, you are doing really well. It's not a test. It's not like you're a better person or anything like that. But it's good to get a picture of where we're at. But what I want you to do is have a think. What stops you? Like, what stops you from being a 10 or a 9 or an 8 or a 7? Like, what stops you? What gets in the way for you personally? What are your barriers or obstacles? Just type those in the chat for us, please. What stops you? Because ultimately, it's us, right? It's us. And so for the next few minutes, I'm going to give you some practical things that I think you can do to maintain a 7 or 8 at least, if not higher. Okay. So number one is this. Well, it's going to be 4 really, I guess. I'll give you this bonus one as well. The first thing is that we know what we do. We know what we do. We know the line of work we are in. We know what our role or our responsibilities are. We know what we do. And we know how to do what we do. So we're aware of, we've been trained, we've been equipped, we've got the experience. We know how to deliver the outcomes. But oftentimes we lose sight of, exactly, Ricky, the why. And the why factor is the thing that is perhaps the most important thing. The why factor is the thing that it's us being emotionally connected to the reason why we're doing what we're doing at the time we're doing it, in the place that we're doing it right now. And if we lose sense of that why, if we lose sense of that reason for being, that sense of meaning, then everything can become really, really challenging, really difficult. And so I want to give us a moment actually to think of, like, what is your why right now? What is your reason why? Maybe you're not sure of it. That's okay. Maybe you're really clear about it. What's the reason that you are doing what you are doing right now? It gets you out of bed in the morning to do the work that you do. What's your reason why? There's a reason why. I would suggest there's a reason why you're in the country you're in the city you're in the town you're in the line of work you're in, at this particular junction and time in your life. Right now, it's not by chance. There's a reason why. There's a reason why. What is that why? Viktor Frankl was a Nazi Holocaust concentration camp survivor, and he survived the Auschwitz camp. And when they came at the end of the war, they rescued those who were remaining, and they found him there, and they interviewed him, and they asked him, and they said, Mr. Frankl, how on earth have you managed to survive these horrendous conditions? How have you made it to this stage? And looking around, there were bodies everywhere, bodies in the concentration camp showers, in the gas chambers, in the ovens, bodies everywhere. How have you survived? They said. And he said, well, the truth is that many of my comrades that you see here that are deceased, many of them had died before they died. I said, what do you mean? He said many of them had resigned themselves to an outcome that hadn't yet arrived. But he said, me, I told myself that I was going to get out of this somehow. I told myself the story that I'd rebuild my life. I'd start family and business over again. He said, I had a different sense of meaning. And he writes about it in his book, which is called a man's, I forgot the title of the book. Man's Search for Meaning. All right. Highly recommend the book, Man's Search for Meaning. But it's that sense of having a reason for why we are doing what we are doing. All right. So what's your why? The first habit I want to give you today is choose to be positive. The first habit of a 2%er is choose to be positive. And you say, well, how do we do that, Errol? How do I do that? Well, I was delivering this training to a group of teachers in a school in Birmingham recently, at their staff training day, and in the training, a member of staff said, "Errol, I realize, when I'm walking around this girls' school, the girls often say to me that my face looks very serious. I look very angry and miserable, but on the inside, I feel fine. I feel great." And I realized that if I change my face, people will think differently. And all the staff in the room clapped and cheered in jest, agreeing with her that she could just, if she just changed her face, put a smile on, it might make a difference. I say that in jest, but it's a serious example that we get to choose how we show up every day. We choose the attitude we wake up with, the mindset. We choose how we respond, how we react to what we face in our environment. Here's some quick tips here for being more optimistic. Number one, when you feel frustrated, ask yourself if you are giving the power of permanence to something that can actually be changed. Tell yourself, I can figure this out. I often tell myself, it's easy. I can do this. It's easy. That's my one. It's easy. Remind yourself of things you've done in the past that could indicate to you you can do better in this particular situation. In fact, I'd hedge my bets and say you've been through harder things and what you might be facing right now. You've done some hard things already. Be alert for patternistic behavior, doing the same thing the same way when it hasn't worked in the past. Listen, break the pattern. If it's not working, find a different way of doing it. Break the pattern, break the cycle. Be sure to take note of every good thing that occurs around you. And more importantly, things that you make happen during the day. We often recognize those things that are not going wrong, don't we? But actually, all day long, I would even suggest you are making a positive impact in so many little ways in people's lives all day long. Focus on the things that are going well. Listen, we have a choice. We have a choice. We get to choose average or extraordinary every day. We choose that. And you may have heard of it. The 90-10 rule says that for 90% of things that happen in our lives are based on our reaction or our response. 10% of things that happen to us are things that are outside of our control. So 90% of things that happen to us are things that happen based on our reaction or our response. I'll give you an example. Picture this scenario. It's 7:30 in the morning, and there are a family at home, and dad is at the breakfast table. He's got his newspaper. He's having his breakfast, some toast, and he's got his crisply ironed white shirt on. Daughter is sat across from him. She's 13, 14 years old, in her school uniform, makeup on, and ready for school, eating her Weetabix. Mom's making some tea for everybody. And she comes over to the table, about to pour some tea for dad, and she accidentally trips and spills tea all over dad's crisply ironed white shirt. And dad flips out. "You stupid woman," he says. "Look what you've done. Oh, I'm going to be late for work. I'm in a state." "I'm so sorry, darling. I'm so sorry," she says. "Sorry? What's sorry going to do? Look at me. Look at the state I'm in." And he's completely flipped out. His daughter across from him now is crying because mom is crying and her makeup's running and mom is upset. And dad stands up and he throws his chair back. He slams down his newspaper and he storms out the house, and he's completely catastrophized the whole situation. And all anything or anyone can think about for that whole day is that moment. It's all that they can think about. Let's replay that scenario. Take two. Same situation. Breakfast table. Dad in his crisply ironed white shirt, getting ready to leave the house for work. Daughter across from him, and mom is about to come over with some tea, and she accidentally trips. And she spills the tea all over dad's crisply ironed white shirt. And this time, dad reaches for the tea cloth on the table, and he grabs it and he quickly dabs off the wet bits before he burns his skin underneath. And "I'm so sorry, darling. Oh, it's okay, darling. Don't worry. It's all under control," he says. "No problem." And he dries himself off. "Darling, please let me help you." "No, honestly, darling, as you were, all good here. Got it sorted. Accidents happen after all." And then He stands up calmly and he, goes out the hallway and up the stairs to his bedroom and to his wardrobe, which is full of crisply ironed white shirts. Takes out another shirt, changes his shirt, fixes himself up, goes downstairs. Thanks for breakfast, darling. Mwah, mwah. Love you. Have a great day. Have a great day at school, babes. Love you. Mwah, mwah. Love you too, Dad. Love you. Love you. Love everywhere. And he goes out the house and completely different result. 90% of things that happen to us in life are based on our reaction or our response. We choose that, guys. We choose that. There's a number called the magic number that Marcial Lasada came up with. And he says that for every negative thing that we hear, we need to hear at least 3 positive things to overpower that negative. Every negative thing that we hear, at least 3 positive things. So imagine, as leaders, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, how positive do we need to be in this day and age? How relentlessly positive do we need to be with those around us? Okay, and we choose to do that. My second thing is today is watching the time. My second point is, number 1 is choose to be positive. Number 2 is take 100% personal responsibility. How do we become the best version of ourselves? Take 100% personal responsibility. I learned this the hard way. Growing up in school, I blamed everyone for everything. I'd say, Dad, it's your fault, Dad. If you weren't in prison, Dad, I wouldn't be so bad. I'd say, Mom, it's your fault, Mom. You're always nagging. I'd say it's the police. They don't like black boys. I'd say it's the Illuminati. It's the New World Order. It's, it's everybody else's fault, except guess who? Myself, right? And folks, I learned that very quickly, well, not quickly enough, that if it's meant to be, it's up to me. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. I was given a book called What Makes the Great Great at 19 years old. And the book told stories. It's by a man called Dennis Kimbrough. And the book told stories of men and women who had gone from nowhere in life to achieving great things in life. And one story in this book never left me. It was about a man named George Washington Carver. And the story went that George Washington Carver was a slave in America in the 1800s. And he was on a plantation with his family. And if you were a slave, then you had your slave master's surname. His master was called Mr. Carver, as he was called George Washington Carver. Anyway, one night in the middle of the night, some bandits came and kidnapped all the slaves off Mr. Carver's plantation, stole them away. In the morning, Mr. Carver sees all his slaves are gone and he goes on a recapture mission to bring his slaves back. And they're only able to find and rescue George and his younger brother. All the rest are feared dead. They recapture the boys and they bring them back to the plantation. And in reading this, I thought to myself, how must those boys have felt in that moment? Like they were back in chains, hands and feet. Maybe in the back of an old cart or truck on a rickety road, going back to nowhere. Cotton and corn for the rest of their lives. No family. Hopeless. I might have said to myself, like, what's the point? But that wasn't George's mindset. George went on to find 300 different uses for a peanut. I know it's random, right? But peanut butter, hair oil, face cream, you name it. And ends up becoming a world famous scientist. There's now a George Washington Carver University in America named after this man. There's a George Washington Carver Bridge in America named after this man. He went on to change the world. It's a true story. And I'm reading this, I'm saying to myself, how does someone go from that condition in life to now becoming this world famous scientist? Like, I really believe to myself, like, if he can do that from where he started from, then man, I know I can do that. You can do that. We can do that regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of our current circumstances. He says, excuses are the nails in the coffin of failure. Excuses are what? They are the nails in the coffin of failure. He said you can have success in life or have excuses, but you can't have both. You choose success or excuses. Man, when I understood this, I said to myself, you know what? I'm not blaming anyone else for where my life is at right now in this moment. I'm going to own this. I said, Dad, I forgive you. Mom, I forgive you. I release it all. Listen, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. I get it. I started reading and studying and developing myself and finding mentors and finding instructors to help me move my life forward. And guess what happens, guys? It turns around. It really does. It really, really does. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. Barack Obama says change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. It's up to us, guys. It's up to us. It's up to us. And lastly, I'll say this to you. Number 3 is understand your impact. Understand your impact. In another, I think it was 2 primary schools in Bristol doing this training a while back. And imagine I'd gotten through the training and going through the training like this. And I was, I'd go around the tables and I'd interact with people and talk to people and stuff. And a teacher said, she said, Errol, you know what, Errol? I don't do all this happiness stuff and positivity stuff. I'm just not into it, she said. I was like, okay, that's cool. I said, anyway, what's your name anyway? Oh, my name's Joy, she said. And we laughed because like he just couldn't have written it like Joy. Okay, cool. Anyway, Joy, oh, nice to meet you and stuff, But at the end of the session, Joy came to the front and she goes, Errol, you know what? I get it. I understand it. Because she said, you know what? Beforehand, she said, I'd be in my classroom and I'd teach my kids and I'd go in my little cupboard during the break time and read a book and not talk to any staff members, not interact with anybody else. I don't feel like I have to or want to. She goes, you know what? I understand that my presence makes a difference. That actually, you know what? I contribute to the condition of the culture in this organization. I make a difference. I have an impact. I understand it now, she said. There's a rule that we call the 4-minute rule. And the 4-minute rule says that, I'll give you an example. Let's say I pick up my wife from work and we agree to ourselves for the first 4 minutes that we can't say anything negative. No, nothing negative. Okay. And so she can't say things like, oh, the photocopier is not working again, or the internet was down again today, or that guy at work, it gets on my nerves, or no negativity for 4 straight minutes from either of us. So I might be saying things like, babes, your hair looks great, or you smell lovely, or that dress really suits you, darling, or being really nice. And after 4 minutes, well, you'd think the floodgates would open, right? But they don't. What actually seems really important in the first instance diminishes in significance because you've overwhelmed it with positivity and you created a positive momentum that tends to carry on forward. The 4-minute rule. You should try it. In the office, when you're starting a meeting at work, maybe rather than going, right, guys, so what's the agenda for today's meeting? Why not say, has anyone got any positive testimonials to share with us this week? Anyone got any good news to share of impact or of transformation to share? Anyone got any good news? Awesome. Or when you go home today, why not ask yourself, if I were the best dad in the world, how would I enter my house? Rather than going in and saying, oh, key in the door, shut the door, slam the door, right, bag on the side, fridge, drink. What about, I'd probably stop at Tesco's or Sainsbury's, get some flowers, get a couple of lollipops for the kids. I don't know, get a cake. I'd put my phone away and silent and not be going in with the phone next to my ear. I'd be ready to grab and give him a big hug. First 4 minutes makes a difference, guys. First 4 minutes, 4-minute rule. The second principle is the 10-5 principle, which says basically, if you're in the office or you're at work and you get within 10 feet of a colleague, at the very least, it's a gesture like a smile. How you doing? Good to see you. Just a gesture, positive gesture. Maybe a wave. If you get within 5 feet of someone, it's a if it's appropriate to do so, might be a hug, might be a high five, might be a fist bump, might be a no kissing allowed, no kissing allowed, no kissing allowed. But you're just gonna be nice, right? Maybe a handshake, a nice gesture. 10-5 principle. 10-5. It's all about understanding the impact that we make, and what happens is that it has a ripple effect in the organization. It becomes contagious. In fact, the stats say that the first person you do that with is then 16% more likely to do it with someone else. Next person is 10% more likely, and then 6 more likely. It has a ripple effect around the organization. So, just to recap for you, I shared three things today for you. I shared number three there, taking personal responsibility. I shared choosing to be positive, and I shared understanding your impact. Three of the keys, out of, in fact, there were six I mentioned earlier. Three of those things that are really important to help us to really get to that place of maintaining our 2% multiplier mindset. So, if you can have a think for us, what's your takeaway for today? What's your action? What are you gonna do differently? Maybe at home or at work, even. What might you implement in your life going forward? Is somehow keeping in front of us a picture of our preferred future for our lives. Um, some years ago, a mentor of mine, a gentleman called Peter J. Daniels, he gave me the advice of writing down my potential in all the areas of my life, separating it into categories and writing down my potential. He said to do it in 30 pages or more. And because it was him saying it to me, and he was my mentor, is my mentor instructor, I had a go. And I wrote it down. And over the last maybe 5, 6 years since doing that, I've always gone back to this document, which literally breaks down page after page what my potential is. And it's reminded me, and it's given me the sense of focus and purpose and empowerment intrinsically. But what I found during this COVID season is that I started to lose sight of that. I started to, um, I started to, it began just to, not to fade, but to lose its intensity. And in the last few weeks, I started doing it again. I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to rewrite my potential. And it's been amazing to see the fresh perspective and clarity I've gotten. So I'd encourage us all that in this season where it looks like hope is waning, it looks like there's not much to expect of the future because of the uncertainty, to actually dig deep again, put pen to paper, and ask yourself maybe that same question: what is my potential? When it comes to my personal relationships, what potential do I have? When it comes to my spiritual life, what potential do I have? When it comes to my business and finances, what potential do I have? When it comes to my health and fitness, what potential do I have? When it comes to my lifestyle, what potential do I have? And actually taking a few minutes to write that down and putting it up somewhere, reminding yourself of what is possible for you to become, can really empower us to move forward. So I'm giving you advice that I'm taking on board for myself right now in this moment as well today. I'm reminded to get back into finishing that document of my potential. And I'm going to do that today. So thank you, everybody.